A House Built on Lies Part 1, The Letter. The rain tapped softly on the old farmhouse windows as Eleanor stood in the dusty hallway of her childhood home. The air smelled like aged wood, forgotten memories, and something else. Something stale, like secrets that had never seen the light of day. Her father had died 3 days ago. A quiet, sudden heart attack while drinking coffee alone at the kitchen table. It had been Eleanor who found him. Head slumped, coffee spilled, his eyes open but vacant. She hadn't cried. Not yet. Now she was here to settle the estate. Alone. Eleanor's relationship with her father, Richard Monroe, had always been polite. Never warm. Her mother had died when she was 11. A tragic car accident that nobody in the family liked to talk about. Since then, it had been just the two of them. The silent man and the observant girl. As she walked up the stairs to his study, Eleanor felt something shift. A strange sense of anticipation. She hadn't been in this room in over a decade. The door creaked open slowly, revealing a place frozen in time. Books lined the shelves, papers were stacked neatly on the desk, and the same worn leather chair sat before the window, facing the distant fields. She was about to turn away when she noticed a single white envelope resting on the desk. Her name was written on the front in her father's unmistakable handwriting. Eleanor, to be opened only after my death. Her breath caught. She sat down in the chair, hands trembling slightly as she opened the envelope. My dearest Eleanor, if you are reading this, then I am gone. There are things I've kept from you, things I never found the strength to say out loud. I am sorry for that. I imagine you have questions about your mother, about our family, about the silence that filled our home for so many years. You deserve answers, even if they come too late. In the bottom drawer of my desk, under the false panel, you'll find a key. It opens the attic trunk, the one I always told you was just filled with old clothes. Inside, you will find the truth. But be warned. Once you open that trunk, nothing will ever be the same. With love, Dad. Eleanor stared at the letter, her heart pounding. Her father had never spoken like this, never sentimental, never cryptic. What was he hiding? She opened the drawer and pulled out the false panel. There, tucked beneath a faded photograph of her mother, was a small brass key. Eleanor stood. Her legs felt weak, but her curiosity was stronger than her fear. She climbed the narrow stairs to the attic, each step creaking beneath her. The door groaned as she opened it, revealing a space cloaked in cobwebs and shadows. The trunk sat in the corner. It looked harmless. Just an old piece of luggage with peeling leather and rusted hinges. But Eleanor knew better now. She knelt beside it, inserted the key, and turned. The lock popped open with a soft click. Inside were 3 things: a stack of old journals wrapped in ribbon, a manila envelope labeled, "For Eleanor, do not destroy," a photograph she had never seen before. She picked up the photo first. It was of her mother, younger than Eleanor remembered, standing beside a man who was most definitely not Richard Monroe. The two were holding hands, smiling, and behind them stood this very house. Her heart thudded. Who was the man? And why had her father kept this hidden? She opened the envelope. Inside were legal documents, birth records, and then her stomach dropped, a DNA test. Her name, her father's name, and under biological father, a name she'd never seen before. She dropped the envelope. Her mind raced. Was Richard Monroe not her father? Why had he raised her all these years in silence, carrying this burden? Why hadn't he told her? And who was the man in the photo, her real father? Before she could even process the flood of questions, her phone buzzed in her pocket. Unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. Hello. A pause. Then a voice. Deep, trembling, unfamiliar. Eleanor Monroe? Yes. Part 2. The stranger's voice. Eleanor's fingers tightened around her phone. The attic felt colder now, like the walls were leaning in to listen. My uncle? She repeated. Yes, the voice replied. I know this is sudden, but your father, Richard, and I were estranged. For reasons I imagine you're beginning to understand. Eleanor's eyes drifted back to the photo of her mother and the stranger. What do you mean? There was a silence on the line. Then, where are you right now? At the farmhouse. Good, David Langley said, his voice urgent. Stay there. I'm driving down. I can be there by nightfall. There's so much I need to tell you, Eleanor. But this isn't something I can say over the phone. She opened her mouth to argue, to demand answers, but the line went dead. Eleanor stared at the phone in disbelief. What the hell was happening? She spent the next hour trying to read through the journals she found in the trunk. Most were written by her father. The first entries were from the late 80s, around the time Eleanor had been born. The early pages were normal. Farm work, thoughts about Eleanor's mother, repairs around the house. Then things shifted. September 3rd, 1990, she said she was going to leave, said she couldn't keep living a lie, that it wasn't fair to raise a child in deception. I begged her to think about Eleanor, but she had already made up her mind. October 12th, 1990, the accident was too perfect. I don't believe it anymore. It wasn't the rain. Someone wanted her gone. Eleanor's stomach turned. Her mother's death hadn't just broken her father. It had haunted him. What did he mean by too perfect? Was he implying her death had been orchestrated? The second journal was older, with a worn cover. Inside were letters tucked between the pages. Letters written by a man named Thomas Bennett, her biological father. My dearest Marie, you said you wanted to run away with her. With Eleanor. I understand. I'd give anything to hold her just once, to tell her the truth. But I fear Richard suspects something. Be careful. Promise me. The handwriting was elegant, emotional, nothing like her father's blocky scrawl. Her mother had been planning to leave with this man, to take Eleanor and start a new life. And then, the car crash. Eleanor didn't believe in coincidences anymore. That evening, as the sun disappeared behind the hills, a car pulled up the gravel road. Eleanor stood on the porch, heart pounding. A tall man stepped out, mid-60s, gray hair, weathered face, piercing eyes. He looked like her, just a little, enough to stir something in her gut. Eleanor, he said, his voice softer now. I'm sorry it's taken this long. She didn't answer, just nodded and led him inside. They sat at the kitchen table, the same one where her father had died. The silence between them was thick, charged. David finally broke it. Richard wasn't a bad man, he said, but he was broken. He couldn't let go of her, not even after she chose someone else. So it's true? Eleanor asked. He wasn't my real father? David nodded slowly. Marie and Thomas were in love long before you were born. Richard knew, but he refused to let her go. She stayed, maybe out of guilt, maybe fear. And when she finally decided to leave, she died, Eleanor finished. David looked at her. The official story was an accident. But your mother was a careful driver. She was on her way to meet Thomas that morning. He waited for hours. She never came. Eleanor tried to breathe. The house felt different now, like a tomb of misplaced memories. Who was Thomas? She whispered. My younger brother. Your real father. Is he alive? David hesitated. No. He died 6 years ago. Cancer. Something cracked in Eleanor. She'd never get the chance to meet him, to ask him why he let Richard raise her, to hear his voice. But David wasn't finished. Before Thomas died, he said, he asked me to find you, to tell you everything. But Richard shut me out, changed his number, threatened legal action. I thought I'd lost you forever. Eleanor looked down at her hands. And now you deserve the truth. All of it. He reached into his coat and pulled out a USB drive. There's more. Letters, recordings, a journal Thomas kept during those years. Everything he couldn't say out loud. She took the drive, her hands shaking. And then David said something that chilled her. There's one more thing you should know. Your mother didn't die instantly in that crash. Someone made sure she didn't survive. And I think it was someone in this family. Eleanor felt her breath catch. Who? She asked, barely able to say it. David's eyes darkened. That's what we need to find out. Part 3, The Widow's Garden. Eleanor didn't sleep that night. She sat in the living room, laptop open, headphones on, listening to the voice of a man she never knew, her real father. Thomas Bennett's recordings were quiet, intimate, as if he were whispering into the past. If you're hearing this, Eleanor, then maybe my brother kept his promise. Or maybe you found this despite him. Either way, I need you to know. I loved your mother. I loved you, even if I couldn't raise you. I tried to fight for you. But Marie said you'd be safer with Richard. I didn't agree, but I trusted her judgment. And I was wrong. Eleanor sat in the dark, face lit only by the blue glow of the screen. She felt hollow, like the life she'd lived was a second-hand story, built from borrowed parts. The next recording played. Your mother never stopped looking over her shoulder. She was afraid. Someone was following her. I told her she was being paranoid. But now I wonder, did Richard hire someone to watch her? Or worse, there were 7 recordings in total, along with scans of handwritten notes. Names, phone numbers, and a short, cryptic message. Ask Vera what she saw. She knows. David was asleep in the guest room, so Eleanor waited until dawn. The name Vera haunted her until she remembered Vera Caldwell, the elderly woman who had lived next door since Eleanor was a child. The one with the sprawling rose garden and too many cats. She used to bake lemon cookies and wave from her porch. Eleanor hadn't seen her in years. By 7 a.m., she was knocking on Vera's door. It opened slowly. Vera was older now, her skin pale and paper-thin, but her eyes, sharp as ever, widened when she saw Eleanor. "Good God," Vera said. "You look just like Marie." Eleanor swallowed. "I need to ask you something." Vera opened the door wider. They sat on the porch, a pot of tea steaming between them. "I always wondered when you'd come back," Vera said. "When your father passed, I knew it would bring the past knocking." "You knew my mother," Eleanor said. "I did. She was sunshine," Vera said. "And your father, Richard, he was thunder. Even when he smiled, there was something heavy about him." Eleanor leaned forward. "Did you see the crash?" Vera's smile disappeared. Her hands trembled slightly as she poured the tea. "I didn't see the crash," she said slowly, "but I saw the hours before it." Eleanor's breath caught. "She came to see me that morning. She was crying, shaking, said she was finally leaving. She hugged you. You were asleep, and kissed your forehead like it was goodbye. She gave me a letter, told me to mail it if anything happened to her." "What did it say?" "I never mailed it," Vera whispered, "and I've regretted it every day since." She stood, walked into the house, and returned moments later with a faded envelope, sealed in wax. Eleanor reached out with shaking hands. The letter was addressed, "To be opened only if I die." She broke the seal. "My dearest Eleanor, if you are reading this, I didn't make it out. I want you to know I tried. I wanted a better life for you. A life not filled with fear and silence. Richard is not your real father. I think you know that by now. But what's worse, I believe he knows. And I think he'd rather see me gone than lose control of this family. If anything happens to me, do not trust him. Look for Thomas. He's a good man. He will protect you. I love you. I always have. I'm sorry I couldn't give you more time. Mom." Tears slid down Eleanor's cheeks. "I should have given it to you years ago," Vera said softly. "But I was afraid of him, Eleanor. We all were." Eleanor stood up, her voice hoarse. "He killed her." Vera didn't argue. But before they could say another word, a car roared past the house. Fast. Black SUV. Tinted windows. Eleanor turned. "That's the 3rd time today." Vera's voice dropped. "That's not anyone from town." Eleanor felt a chill crawl up her spine. They were being watched. Back at the farmhouse, David was already awake, standing by the window, phone in hand. "They were here again," he said. "Same SUV. Same route. Twice this morning. Someone knows you opened the trunk." Eleanor set the letter down on the table. "So what now?" David looked at her with grim resolve. "We finish this. We expose everything. But we need help." He picked up his phone and dialed. A woman answered. "Cass," he said. "It's David. I need you to come back. It's about Marie. And Richard. And the girl." There was silence. Then a soft reply. "I told you I'd never go near that house again." "I know," he said. "But it's time." Part 4. The Family We Choose. Cass arrived by evening. She pulled up in a red pickup, stepped out in black jeans and combat boots, and lit a cigarette before even looking at the house. Her hair was short and silver blonde, and her eyes, tired but sharp, scanned the farmhouse like it was haunted. Eleanor opened the door. Cass stared at her. "My God," she said quietly. "You have Marie's eyes." Eleanor didn't know what to say. Cass looked to David. "How much does she know?" "Enough," he said. "Not everything." Cass nodded once. "Then let's give her the rest." They sat in the den. No lights on. Just the dim glow of a storm approaching through the windows. Thunder rumbled in the distance. Cass began. "I was Marie's best friend," she said. "From the time we were kids. We were inseparable until Richard." Eleanor leaned forward. "What happened?" "Marie married him too young," Cass said. "She thought she loved him, but the truth is, Richard was obsessed with her. Controlled everything. Isolated her." David chimed in. "I warned her. We all did. But she thought she could change him. She met Thomas a few years later," Cass continued. "And for the first time, I saw her breathe. He brought her back to life. They planned to leave together. But the night before they were supposed to go, someone broke into Thomas's apartment, trashed the place, left a photo of Marie and Eleanor, torn down the middle. Eleanor's skin crawled. A threat. Cass nodded. She stayed, out of fear. And then, the crash. Eleanor stood up, pacing. "Everyone keeps hinting that Richard killed her, but no one has proof." Cass exchanged a glance with David. "We might have something," David said slowly. "Richard had a brother. Joseph." "Another one?" Eleanor asked, surprised. Cass nodded. "The darkest of them all. He disappeared in '95, a few years after your mother's death. Rumor was, Richard paid him to keep tabs on Marie. Maybe more." Eleanor frowned. "So where is he now?" "That's the thing," David said. "We don't know. But I think he's back." Cass reached into her bag and pulled out an old photo. It was grainy, taken from a security camera. A man standing outside Vera Caldwell's house 2 nights ago, face partially hidden. But the tattoo on his neck, a snake wrapped around a dagger, matched the one in an old photo labeled Joseph Monroe, 1984. "Why is he watching us?" Eleanor asked. Cass's voice dropped. "Because you're opening doors that were supposed to stay locked." That night, Eleanor sat alone on the porch, listening to the rain. Her head spun. She had no idea who she was anymore. A child raised by a man who wasn't her father. A girl whose real father died without meeting her. Whose mother died trying to escape a cage Eleanor didn't even know she'd lived in. She pulled out the last recording from Thomas. "If this ever reaches you, I need you to promise me something. Don't let their fear become yours. Don't let what they did to Marie define your future. You are not their legacy. You're better, stronger. You are my daughter." For the first time in days, Eleanor cried. Not for her father or her mother, but for the girl she used to be. The one who never questioned anything. The one who thought silence meant peace. The next morning, Vera came by. She was shaking. "They broke into my shed," she said. "Nothing stolen, but everything was rearranged, like they were sending a message." Cass clenched her jaw. "He's toying with us." David pulled Eleanor aside. "It's not safe here anymore." "I'm not running," she said. "Not again." "There's one more place we haven't looked," Cass said. "The hunting cabin." Eleanor blinked. "The what?" "It was Richard's," Cass explained. "Deep in the woods. He used to disappear for days. Marie hated it. Said it felt like a place where things went to die." A silence fell over them. Eleanor's heart pounded. "Let's go." They drove up the muddy trail, the trees closing in on all sides. The cabin was small, decrepit, but still standing. The windows were boarded. The lock rusted. David kicked the door in with a grunt. Inside was dust, mildew, and darkness. But then Cass found it. A trapdoor half hidden beneath a rug. They pulled it open and descended the stairs, one by one. What they found underneath would change everything. A room, cold, windowless, with photographs pinned across the walls. Photos of Marie, of Eleanor as a child, even Vera. Every move, every moment documented. In the center of the room was a table. On it, a tape recorder, a fresh reel, labeled, "For her." Eleanor pressed play. The voice was raspy.
Familiar.
It sent chills down her spine. "You should have left the past buried, little girl. But now that you're digging, let me show you what it cost me. Meet me where she died. Midnight. Come alone." The tape ended. David looked at Eleanor. "It's a trap." She didn't blink. "I'm going." Part 5, Midnight at the Crossroads. The night was silent. Too silent. The rain had stopped, but the clouds still loomed. Eleanor stood by her car at the edge of the old highway, the one where her mother's car had gone off the road 27 years ago. The twisted guardrail was still there, rusted, like a scar on the land. It was exactly midnight. She looked back once. Cass and David were watching from a hill above, far enough to stay hidden. Against their protests, Eleanor had insisted on going alone. "I need to face him," she had said. "He's watched me all my life. I want him to see that I'm not afraid anymore." She stepped into the clearing, flashlight in hand. The gravel crunched beneath her boots. Trees loomed like sentinels. The crash site was just ahead, a ditch thick with overgrowth. Then she heard it. A twig snap. She turned. A figure emerged from the trees. Tall, gaunt, wearing a long coat. His face was lined with time, but Eleanor recognized him instantly. The same eyes from the photo David had shown her. The same tattoo, a snake and dagger, faded but unmistakable. "Joseph," she said. He smiled. Slow, cold. "You look just like her," he said. "Same fire, same stupidity." Eleanor tightened her grip on the flashlight. "You've been watching me since I was a child." "Not watching," he said, stepping closer. "Protecting. From the truth. From what she would have turned you into." Eleanor's stomach twisted. "What do you mean?" "Marie was a liar," he growled. "She broke Richard. Broke our family. She was going to take you away. He couldn't let that happen. Neither could I." "You killed her," Eleanor whispered. Joseph's face darkened. "She made her choice. I made mine." "You sabotaged her car," Eleanor said, louder now. "You followed her. You threatened Thomas. And when she tried to escape, she died," he said simply. "And Richard never recovered." Eleanor's voice trembled with rage. "He lived another 20 years, in silence, with guilt that ate him alive." Joseph's expression flickered. "He didn't know I did it. That stopped her. He thought it was an accident. Until the end. I never told him." Eleanor stared. "Why are you telling me now?" "Because you're a mistake that keeps echoing," he said coldly. "You were never supposed to exist." He reached into his coat. Eleanor froze. Then movement in the trees. A light flashed. Cass shouted, "Step away from her." Joseph turned. David lunged. Eleanor ducked as the two men collided. The flashlight flew from her hand, landing in the dirt. She scrambled back, heart racing. Joseph threw David off with surprising strength. He reached into his coat again, but this time Cass was faster. A loud crack echoed through the woods. A warning shot from her pistol. "Try it," she hissed. Joseph froze. Cass advanced, gun steady. "Drop it." He did. A small silver blade hit the ground. David groaned, pulling himself to his feet. His lip was bleeding. "You should have stayed gone," Joseph said, eyes wild. "This family dies in silence." "No," Eleanor said, stepping forward. "Not anymore." She picked up her phone and tapped record. "Say it," she demanded. "Say what you did." Joseph laughed. And what? Let you bury me with your stories? She walked right up to him. You already buried my mother, she said. Now it's your turn. Cass raised the gun. And Joseph did something Eleanor didn't expect. He smiled. Good girl, he whispered, then lunged. The fight was chaotic. Fast. Cass tackled Joseph, struggling to restrain him. David joined in. Eleanor backed away, stunned, her phone still recording. Joseph shouted like a madman. She was going to ruin everything. You're all fools. The truth doesn't matter. Finally, they pinned him. David zip-tied his wrists with a pair Cass had in her glove box. Joseph thrashed, cursing, then fell silent. Cass looked at Eleanor. You okay? She nodded. I got everything. By morning, Joseph Monroe was in police custody. The confession, the evidence in the cabin, the journals. It all built a case impossible to ignore. For the first time in nearly 3 decades, Marie Bennett's death was reclassified. Not an accident. Murder. Eleanor sat alone in the attic, surrounded by the ghosts of her childhood. She had lost one father, discovered another, and exposed a third. A monster hiding behind family ties. But she had found something, too. A voice. Past no longer hidden in whispers. And a future finally free from shadows. Part 6. What remains after the storm. The farmhouse was quiet. For the first time in weeks, there were no strange cars on the road, no watchers in the trees, no shadows pacing the halls. Just Eleanor, standing in her childhood kitchen, watching the morning light creep across the floorboards. Joseph Monroe was behind bars. His taped confession, recorded on Eleanor's phone, had made the evening news. He had admitted to stalking Marie, threatening Thomas, and sabotaging the brakes of Marie's car. It had taken nearly 3 decades, but justice, long delayed, had finally arrived. Richard Monroe's legacy lay in ruins. The town was stunned. Neighbors whispered. The Monroe name, once respected, was now a cautionary tale, a symbol of silence, of control, of what happens when family becomes a prison. But Eleanor had done something extraordinary. She had opened the cage. The funeral was small. Just a few chairs under a willow tree behind the farmhouse, where Marie used to sit in the evenings. Eleanor scattered her mother's ashes into the wind. There were no speeches. No prayers. Just silence. And peace. David and Cass stood beside her. She would have been proud of you, David said quietly. Eleanor didn't respond. She didn't have to. The wind answered for her, sweeping the ashes into the sky like smoke. That night, Eleanor packed up the attic. She boxed the journals, the photos, the DNA tests. Everything that had once felt like a bomb now felt like bricks, heavy, yes, but useful. She would build something new from them. She paused at the trunk. Inside was one last letter. Unopened. It was addressed simply, to Eleanor for when you're ready. Dad. She sat cross-legged on the attic floor and opened it. My Eleanor, if you're reading this, then you've learned the truth. Or at least most of it. I never knew how to love you properly, not after what I did. But I loved you, in my own broken, bitter way. You were never mine by blood, but you were mine in every other way. I changed your diapers. I taught you to ride a bike. I sat through every school recital and hid my tears like a fool. I hated Thomas not because he was bad, but because he was better, because she chose him, because she wanted to take you away. I lost your mother, and I knew I'd lose you too. So I did the worst thing a man can do. I kept you through silence. I stole your right to know. I'm sorry. I hope you find freedom in the truth. I hope you become more than I ever was. Don't build your house on lies, Eleanor. Build something better. Love, Richard. She folded the letter, tears in her eyes. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was something. Weeks passed. Eleanor decided not to sell the farmhouse. Instead, she restored it. She opened the windows, painted the walls, planted a garden like Vera's. She turned the attic into a writing room. And for the first time, she wrote about everything. Her mother, her fathers, the man who watched from the shadows, and the girl who refused to be silent. The memoir went viral online. A house built on lies. People wrote letters, emails. Thousands of women shared their stories. Of secrets, of survival, of speaking up after years of being silent. Eleanor realized something powerful. Truth didn't just free her, it freed others too. One spring morning, she sat on the porch as Vera sipped tea beside her, humming softly. Cass had moved into town, quietly helping women with nowhere to go. David taught music at the high school and fixed fences on weekends. They weren't blood, but they were her family, the kind you choose. That night, Eleanor stood at the edge of the property, looking out at the trees. The wind moved gently through the grass. Somewhere out there, her mother's spirit lingered. Not trapped, but watching. Eleanor smiled softly. "I'm okay now," she whispered. The wind answered like a breath across her cheek. The end.